With eating the right food said to be the best third thing we can do after social distancing and washing our hands to avoid getting viruses, including COVID, influenza, and so on, then it's probably a good thing that we do to really start to understand about the food we eat. Good morning and welcome to the show. My name's Steve Bennett. I'm joined today in about 5 minutes' time by Jenny Phillips. Now, Jenny Phillips is a nutritionist, but she's no normal nutritionist. This lady is amazing. You're going to learn so much today. Think about it. When two of the top chefs of the world, the Caldaces, decided to write a cookbook, who do they get to help on the nutritional side? Jenny Phillips. When our good friend, Dr. James Gornick, one of the leading, in fact, most awarded, decorated dentist, I don't mean decorating the walls in his room, but I'm talking about being nominated or won twice, the best dentist in the UK, wrote his book, Kick Sugar, my words out this morning, Kick Sugar. He enlisted the help of Jenny Phillips. So this lady knows a lot about nutrition, and we're going to talk, especially I'm interested because her own first book was Outsmart Cancer, so a topic that my family are very keen to understand more about, and as sadly we've lost some good friends in the last 2 years to cancer, young friends, and 3 of my 4 grandparents to cancer, my aunt to cancer. So anything we can do to you can never say the word completely, stop the fact that you're never going to get it, but to limit your chances would be fantastic. Welcome to the show. It's called the Food Bank Show, also because we're trying to raise money for the food banks across the UK, and if you could give to Just Giving, that would be great, or if you can, pointed the wrong way, donate via text message. Literally, if you text the number on the screen, which is 70450, then you can text £5, £10, whatever you're happy to donate. And my family and I, we will double that donation all the way up to £100,000. We're currently about 12 or 13,000 pounds. We need to get to 100,000. That's what we're trying to raise for the food banks in the UK. Plus, don't forget, equally, if not more important, when you're doing your daily shop or your weekly shop in your Sainsbury's, your local Tesco's, wherever, Asda, wherever you are, there's those collection boxes. As you've just finished doing all your shopping, collection boxes, just put something in there because that food goes to the food banks across the UK. These are the kind of things that they're looking for, desperately short on UHT milk at the moment, but also canned fruit, canned vegetables, canned fish, canned meat. All those sorts of things are greatly appreciated. So as you're going around and getting the things for yourself, and you go, I'm going to have a can of tuna, just buy 1 extra can and just put that in. And if we all do that together, and we've got thousands of people that watch this show across the different platforms, if you can do that, that would be fantastic. And also, what we're trying to do, of course, with this show, as well as raise money, is raise awareness for real food, raise awareness for nutrition, and try and get you in this lockdown period when your normal places you might eat, maybe you would occasionally go to McDonald's, maybe you'd occasionally go to Greggs or Subway, all the sort of places I'd love to shut down without doing it with the virus. But you've got to change your eating habits anyway. Why not change them for the better? So a couple of days ago, the co-author of my cooking book, which is called Primal Gourmet, Anna Henderson, she has just done a great 1-minute clip. Have a little look at this. If you want to see that again, it's just further down the page on YouTube. Right, let's get straight on with the real celebrity today. We've got the brilliantly talented, superb author and nutritional expert, Jenny Phillips, with me. How are you, Jenny?
Really well, thanks, Steve. Lovely to see you.
And you, that's the first time I think we've officially met, although it seems like every single friend of mine's always talking about you. So apologies it's taken so long, because I know you're good friends with the Unwins, obviously the Caldeses, James Goulnick. Let's go, well, tell us a bit about yourself, and then let's start. Tell us a bit about your book, Outsmarting Cancer.
Okay, so I'm now a nutritionist and a yoga teacher, but I wasn't always those things. And my story starts 15 years ago when I was diagnosed at the very young age of 39 with cancer myself. And just to sort of set the scene, 15 years ago, I would have said that I was really healthy. I've always exercised. I've always cooked from scratch. I had a really healthful life, I thought, 2 young children. And that diagnosis was like a shock from the blue, really. And I've really had to not just go through the treatment, which was fantastic, but I really had to change my odds out the other side, because my chance of recurrence was given at 50%, which I just didn't like the sound of. Wow. At all. And that's the issue. So once you're through that, you're into prevention then. And you mentioned a lot of family members and friends. And yes, that is the truth of it. We all need to be protecting ourselves as best we can. I've got a science background. My first degree was in chemistry, actually. And in my quest to see how I could change those odds, I kind of dug out my scientific background and started researching what I could do that would make a difference. And at the time, there wasn't that much written about food and health in the same way that is today. But there was still enough for me to kind of get under the skin of things. And what I must say is that prior to this event, I was your typical healthy eating person, following the guidelines to a T. All those polyunsaturated oils, low salt, low fat. Yeah. I was a dream example of following that. And I no longer eat like that. And I believe that was, one of the things that led to my situation, not least because when I've completely changed what I eat, my health is way better now in my mid-50s than it was when I was in my 30s. And I just find that amazing. Some of the medications that I took then, thinking it was perfectly normal, it's not normal. Yes, we need medications sometimes, but actually we need to invest in the workings of our own body and our own health so that we minimize them. And currently I'm not on any, which is fantastic.
Well done.
Just to give an example, I'd been on inhalers for asthma since I was 8 years old. And a side effect of my changing my diet was that I didn't need them very, very quickly. Wow.
Does it make you frustrated? Because my book's called Fat and Furious, because I'm furious that, we're the same age pretty much, mid-50s, and why has it taken this long to realise that all the stuff we've been told is just wrong? Why? You followed what you thought was a healthy diet. I followed what I thought was a healthy diet. I was a jogger. I'd jog every day. I'd go on expedition after expedition, and I was obese the entire time. Luckily for me, I never got the big C. But crikey, I was on definitely a path that could have probably triggered it. So God bless you for changing and taking control of it.
And Steve, that's really why I've been so keen on writing, firstly with Eat to Outsmart Cancer, because although I wrote that as a guide for people going through a journey so that you could really show how much of a role you can play in your own health. But also for people that don't want to get it, because that's like all of us, whether you've had it or not, you just don't want to go there if you can avoid it. And all ill health, I believe, is a combination of your genetics, your environment, but it's also the life choices you make on a daily basis. And food is one that we have an enormous scope to do right or wrong. But you're right, it's the information that is the frustration. And that's why I think the more all of us can do to raise awareness, and we've got some really heavy hitters in this field, haven't we? In the UK, you've got your Asim Malhotras and David Unwins and so many people really flying the flag for how food is so important.
They are flying the flag, but they're against this complete barrage of lobbyists from the big food companies trying to silence these brilliant doctors, because that cheap food is profitable food. It's anything that you put in a packet, that you put loads of fake oils in and loads of carbs, is cheap to make, long shelf life, addictive, and of course those big corporates, that's where they make their money. And therefore, sadly, I think if it wasn't for those big corporations almost trying to silence the Asims and the Unwins, they would be way more well known. They'd be TV celebrities every single day, but they can't become TV celebrities every single day because they won't deviate from what they really believe in. Back to what you're saying, we buried last year a really close friend, early 30s, young man, Carl, the most lovely, gorgeous man ever. He was my children's piano teacher. He was round our house a couple of days a week, and towards the end and he died within a month of finding out 2 months of finding out he had cancer. But he was always asking me for food advice, and we were always talking in the kitchen about food. And the trouble is, he followed those guidelines. He thought he was overweight, mid-30s, but he was avid bird watcher. He was an avid hiker. He was not a lazy sloth or anything at all. Yeah. He was doing what he thought was right, and he died mid-30s because he was following those bloody guidelines.
Yeah, and that's why a book like this, it's quite an easy read, it's quite personable, and it makes a great gift for somebody going through that scenario, and it does paint another picture, and it talks about some of the background, Ansel Keys and his cherry-picked science, and it just sets people up for a different understanding, because there was something quite profound that I learned very early on in my cancer diagnosis. And that is that as a nation, we are overfed and undernourished. And I think that is absolutely true. And certainly in my clinical practice now, seeing people to help with their nutrition, that is absolutely the case. Because, of course, when we're eating a lot of grains, they're nutritionally very poor. That's why they have to be fortified. And they're just not the same as the foods we were designed to eat, in my opinion.
Yeah, if that's your phrase, let me apologise because I stole it and it's in 2 of my books. But we're
on the same page, aren't we?
We're underfed. Sorry, we're overfed. We're eating way too much, but
of the
wrong stuff, and therefore you could be taking on loads of calories with the bread, the pasta, the rice. But where's all the nutrition? I had a doctor on the other week, and he's absolutely convinced nearly all the diagnoses of kids at school with the ADHD, the bipolars, and all these things, that they're very real. In fact, one of my children, Tom, had to have special help at one point, but he's absolutely convinced that nearly all of them relate to just not getting the right amount of vitamins and nutrition. And you can kind of see it. I used to feed my kids brown bread because I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Orange juice in the morning because I thought that was healthy. Then they'd have that massive sugar rush. They'd go to school. They would then be craving more carbs. So then they'd have the sandwich. Then they'd choose the canteen. They'd have the pasta at school. Come home. My wife would cook pasta because we all thought, but it was probably brown pasta. We thought it was all healthy choices. All day long. Loads of calories. No nutrition at all.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah. And I've seen teenagers put on antidepressants when, if you look at their diet, all they're eating is carbs. I mean, how can you build a brain without protein, without good fats? Your brain's 60% fats. And if you're just eating donuts and pasta, which is quite typical, for somebody in high school, it's never going to end well, is it? And so this is the other thing I learned, that we can change our biochemistry through what we eat. And that is so powerful.
Hold that thought, biochemistry. I want to go back one step if we can. So you're diagnosed with cancer. You are scientifically trained anyway. What was the first few food changes that you made in your own diet?
I stopped all the starchiness. So I used to live on cheese sandwiches, used to love them, on my brown breads, cereals for breakfast, that all stopped. So switching to things like eggs with vegetables for breakfast. Just having, protein and veg. So very much a fan of good quality meat in modest amounts, along with lots of vegetables. And those were the changes that I started to make. And I mean, I could not believe the side effects in terms of health, energy, that goes through the roof, doesn't it? When you start eating differently. So those were the changes that I made. So away from those, and my diet wasn't bad. My diet was as is recommended. I wasn't eating junk food, but it was not good enough nutritionally for me. And I know some people have more tolerance, and we talk in our books about a carb scale, acknowledging the fact that some people genetically or through the activity levels can eat more carbs with less effect, but you still want to be eating the proteins and the fats and the vegetables alongside it.
But we're in a family, aren't we, children, where if I look at a carb, my belly expands by a couple of inches just by looking at it. Their mother can eat whatever she wants all day long, and she might be toffee. What's that one? Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. But she's never put on a pound in her entire life, regardless of what she eats. So, yeah, genetics play a part of it. But I've also been taught by your good friend Dr. David Unwin that just because you look great on the outside, don't just assume that you can tolerate all these carbs, because you may have, fat around your organs, which is also dangerous.
And sometimes that actually can be a negative thing, because you think you're doing okay. And so that's where we have to look at other things like energy and if you can get some measurement of your fat. In clinic, I use the Tanita scales, the clinical scales, which show visceral fat. So that's very helpful as well.
Absolutely. So don't always, although there are enough of us in the UK that are overweight, but even if you are the right weight, doesn't mean to say your body is tolerating the carbs you're throwing at it. And certainly you could be lacking in good nutrition. Now, you mentioned a word, biochemistry. Please explain what that is and what it means, and does what we eat change it? Yeah,
so biochemistry is basically the chemistry of life, and it's how our bodies function. So if you think about it, everything about our bodies is made internally from the foods we eat and the air we breathe. And at any moment in time, there's huge amounts going on in our chemical factory inside. At this very moment, you're digesting food, you're making hormones, your brain is working. There's so many things that happen. And it's the biochemistry which does get affected by the food choices that we make. Shall I give you a couple of examples?
Yeah.
One would be oxidation. I know you had Patrick Holford on the other day, and you were talking about oxidation. And keeping our body in balance is really important for health, because if we have too much oxidative stress in the body, then that causes damage. From my point of view, obviously wanting to avoid that, because it can damage DNA and contribute to a cancer diagnosis. So one of the best sources to upset your body with oxidation is these polyunsaturated oils, which are very unstable. And when you heat them, they oxidize like crazy. And then when you consume them, you're putting a stress on your body and creating inflammation. So that is a response to a food that you eat, which is a negative one.
Yeah.
A positive response would be eating lots of high antioxidant foods like berries, or actually red peppers are brilliant for vitamin C. And that would then negate and reduce the amount of inflammation in your body. So it's a direct biochemical impact. Another one, from the sugar point of view, of course, is that if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, then you're producing huge amounts of insulin. And if you bring your carbohydrates right down, then yes, of course, you need some insulin, but it's going to be very low. And we know that the issues with high insulin levels in terms of pre-diabetes and leading on to a diabetic.
Yeah. Oh, have we just frozen? Right, Jenny's just frozen. We'll get Jenny back in just a moment. I hope you're finding this absolutely fascinating. I am. It's just, it's really tragic that she's suffered from cancer in the past, but she took control of her own situation, and with her background, with her degrees and understanding of chemistry, has started to understand how food affects illness. The books that Jenny's been involved with, I didn't know about the cancer one, by the way, so I'm going to go out and rush out and buy that this afternoon. But the books that I know of that she's been involved with is the weight loss diabetes book that she did all the introduction, all the nutritional analysis for the brilliant Caldaces. Brilliant book. They've got a new one out as well, by the way, which is called Reversing Diabetes. using diet. And Jenny's also involved with Kick Sugar. Now, Kick Sugar is a brilliant book, not-for-profit book. This book, all the profits going to charity. And again, recipe after recipe after recipe, cutting down the carbohydrates. And if you are new to what we're talking about, why is it all of a sudden that everybody's talking low carb? Well, the reality is it just works. Cutting down the carbohydrates, cutting down the pastas, the rice, the potatoes. In fact, Jack, do we have the slide, the sugar slide? Jack's going to try and find it, but just in case he can't find it, with the help of Dr. David Unwin and our team, Dr. David Unwin produced all this research. We put it into this chart here. And this is frightening because when your body is battling with sugar, it's raised its insulin level to deal with it. And both of those two are associated with the likes of cancer, associated with heart disease, associated with brain health, Alzheimer's and so on, associated with obesity. So you take a regular glass of apple juice, as I did for my children for years and years and years, and it turns into over 8 teaspoons. That is, my friends, 32 grams of sugar inside the body. Now, your body's got to deal with that. When it comes into the liver, if you need some energy, if you're low on resources, yeah, sure, it will use it. And it'll use it as energy. But let's say you're taking that and you don't need that energy. We've got a store of energy called the glycogen store within the liver that can hold around 2,000 calories. But the second that's full, it's got to pump it out. And when it pumps it out into the bloodstream. And in the bloodstream, too much sugar is poisonous. That's why we have glucose monitors. And then because it's poisonous, what happens is the pancreas releases insulin, and it was the failing of the pancreas of our good friend that caused him to have cancer and to sadly die last year, Cole, in his early 30s. His pancreas just gave up. He was very much a big carb eater. So anyway, you don't want sugar in your bloodstream. It's poisonous. Insulin takes it, stores it in your body fat. If you've got any fat around the midriff, and I was obese for over 20 years, that is pretty much down to too much carbohydrates. And my son's laughing because that's his favourite slide of all to put up. There's his dad 12 years ago on the left, about 4 stone heavier than I am today. That was me Christmas Day 2014. You can see I'm putting the spuds out for Christmas Day. We don't even have spuds on Christmas Day now. We have celeriac, we have other things that are much, much healthier than the potatoes. But back to the slide. Oh, Jack wants to do the slide. Okay, let's change tack a little bit. We'll go back to the chart in a second while we try and get Jenny. Here's today's food fact. Now, the banana. This is why we just think the government's guidelines are just completely insane, and why they've got to change. Because, first of all, there's 30-odd% carbohydrates. You don't need any of these, zero. They're all, everything here is processed. Everything here will lead to metabolic syndrome in many people. Not everybody, but in many people. But then if you look over on the healthy side here, there are several that are just totally unhealthy if you're trying to lose weight. So bananas and raisins. Let me just quickly talk about banana. Because banana is a fruit. It is technically one of your 5 a day. And if you don't have metabolic syndrome, if you're perfect weight, like my 2 children over there, if you don't have cancer or worried about cancer, if you don't have diabetes and you're not even worried about diabetes, then go and have a banana, because look, it's got vitamins in it, it's got other things, it's got potassium in it, it's a really good source of potassium. But here's the problem. A banana, a normal banana, turns into 12 grams of sugar when it's in your body. So let's just say you've had a big breakfast and you're full up and your glycogen store's all full up and you don't need any more energy. So you have the banana, bang, so much sugar now being pumped into your bloodstream, so much insulin then needed to grab it and store it. So I'm not saying that bananas aren't good for health. If you had some sweets in this hand that are just sugar with no nutrition and a banana, well, go for the banana every single time if that's your only choices. Because look, it's got potassium, it's got vitamins, it's got lots of good stuff in. But if you're trying to lose weight, banana's not your friend. If you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, banana is not your friend. If you've had cancer before or worried about cancer, banana is not your friend. Same story goes for raisins. That's why the Eat Well guidelines is something that I've set up a not-for-profit organisation called healthdaddy.com. And if you'd like to go and register over there, your support, we're just saying to the government, you've got to get rid of those guidelines. Those guidelines cause cancer. Those guidelines cause obesity in certain people. We either need no guidelines and just lots more education, or we need different guidelines for different people. We need different guidelines for my dad who's diabetic. We need different guidelines for my children who are still growing so they can handle some more carbs. We need different guidelines for somebody like me that has a problem with weight and always has to be careful what he eats. And therefore we either need no guidelines or a range of guidelines.
Do you want to share a spoonful of sugar?
Have you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so to raise awareness for how much sugar is in food, I funded a cartoon. We took all the research from David Unwin, and everything you see when you see a food turn into sugar right now is factually the amount of sugar in each food type. Have a look at this.
Just as painful as sugar. Woohoo! Just as painful as sugar. Just as painful as sugar. Just as painful of sugar.
Well, we got you back, Jenny.
Hey.
I don't know if you've seen that cartoon before. Can you hear me, Jenny?
It's cutting in and out, you know.
Is it cutting in and
Can
out?
you hear me okay, Steve?
We can hear
Yeah.
you brilliantly. Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay.
Right, have you
Okay.
seen that cartoon before?
I haven't, but I just caught a glimpse of it. And yeah, I think the most striking thing that people don't necessarily get is that how terrible sugar really makes you feel. You know, you've got that instant hit and that reward, the dopamine hit, but it's not long then before your energy levels crash. And I think the more we understand that, the more we can see it in ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe if you just pause YouTube, you might get a better feed.
I haven't got YouTube up.
Oh, yeah.
to my knowledge.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's
No.
great. Right, loads
No,
of
not to my
questions.
knowledge.
Loads of questions
Oh,
coming in
okay.
for you.
Great.
Jenny, which deficiencies do you most often see?
Okay, so you're talking here more about supplements.
I
Or
guess it's in
what
what
I-
nutritional deficiencies probably did you see?
Yeah, I mean, what I see is, you know, the sort of diet plan that we talked about, which is as recommended, is such a high use of carbohydrates and deficiencies in good fat intake, and often people not eating enough protein as well. So that, typically the diet plans that I see, because I ask people what they're eating, and they do a 3-day food diary, are very much that people are overeating the carbs and undereating vegetables, but also protein and fats. In terms of supplements, I do run tests because it is very individualized. Once you've got your diet as nutritious as you can make it. Then some people have a need for some supplements, but that's very individualized, and I prefer to use testing, save for a multi, which we could all benefit from, to be honest, maybe a multi and fish oil. But yeah,
absolutely.
That's the issues, I think, in diet.
Dev Patel says, have you personally helped people reverse short-term cognitive decline simply via nutrition and food, for example, dementia and Parkinson's? What a great question.
Yeah, I've done specialist training in both of those subjects, actually. Lucille Leader from the nutritional side is one of the most advanced people in working with reversing Parkinson's, and I trained with her. And I also did Dale Bresden has done some really good work in terms of the work in the US to reverse Alzheimer's. I tend to run workshops to help people to improve their cognition and reduce the risk. I haven't personally worked with somebody with active dementia myself, but certainly it's the same techniques, and it's back to this overfed and undernourished. It's back to getting a really nutrient-rich real foods diet back in, along with some other lifestyle issues as well. Sleep's really important for brain health. Low sugar. So important from a health point of view. I can't tell you how important that is to have a healthy body. So very much, I'm kind of describing functional medicine, but it applies to all health issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually just optimizing your health as best you can.
Yeah, we keep...
can you hear me okay, Steve?
Yeah, we're dropping in and out, but...
Have we lost you again?
Well, we can still hear you. I'm going to... next one is from Sheila.
Okay.
Sheila Ford says, highly processed food is the worst food one can eat. I started low carb in September 2019, then progressed to carnivore diet on the 1st of March, and loving the way of life. Well done, Sheila. In fact, I interviewed the other day, not put it out yet, the gentleman that wrote the carnivore diet, Dr. Sean Baker. What a fascinating gentleman. So
fascinating.
More of a comment there, I think, that one. Hannah says, for those who eat healthily, no sugar, no processed carbs, during the week, but perhaps treat themselves a little on the weekend, would you say this is okay for our health?
It's a really interesting question, isn't it? And the way we see food, these kind of naughty foods as treats, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't think you have to be 100% if you're healthy.
Yeah.
I do think there is some leeway, but if you're trying to recover from disease, I would say you've got to give it your best shot, because there's a big game to play. But if you're healthy, then I think you can get away with a little leniency around the edges. Yes, I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just reinvestigate why you see it as treat food as well. Because, I mean, to me, treat food is like dark chocolate melted into double cream, and that's still okay.
Yeah.
I don't really crave the, artificially type food. Well, I don't. I just wouldn't eat them. But I do like to have more luxury foods as well. And in our books, in the cookbooks, we always have some... they're treat foods, but they're healthy treat foods. So if you want a chocolate cake, make it yourself if you can.
Isn't it amazing?
And make sure you've got quality ingredients.
It's so amazing, isn't it? Your cookbook, my cookbook, James's book, that everybody likes different things, and you can almost find something that's very healthy. So I love ice cream, but you can make ice cream out of coconut milk and strawberries, and it tastes almost identical to my favourite Haagen-Dazs. I also like cheese and biscuits. Well, cheese is all right for you, but if you change the biscuits and make your own, we just did some chia seed biscuits the other day. Absolutely amazing. So it doesn't matter whatever your fan, and you just said then, double cream with dark chocolate, as long as it's proper cacao powder, cocoa powder, then it's fantastically healthy. It's got all the antioxidants you could ever want. It's chocolate, but that's floated your boat. So I'm with you. I'd say to Hannah, great question, but find it what it is that is your treat. Can you swap that treat out
and make
for
it healthy?
Else?
Yeah. And if you have got a health issue, like if you are diabetic, I'm absolutely there with Dr. David Unwin that you don't want any little bit of poison in your body because you can't handle it. So there is a difference between if someone's young and healthy But I would still say, look for the healthy version of what you enjoy. Exactly.
Fantastic advice. Joan Mears, the rubble is they don't believe what you're telling them. The trouble is they don't believe what you're telling them. She's corrected herself there. She probably typed that in when we were talking earlier on about governments and that nobody's listened, that this Eat Well plate is not an Eat Well plate. Jenny Blacks, I was asking, I did juicing and lost weight. I also improved my eyesight now. The weight's back and I'm older. Help with belly fat. So I think what Jenny's saying is she lost weight by juicing. Well, there's a big difference between juicing and blending. So I don't know if she means juicing or blending. And she lost the weight. Her eyesight came back, but the weight's now back. I mean, it is a constant struggle for some people. You still there, Jenny? Oh no, we've lost the brilliant Jenny Phillips again. Jenny, if you can hear us, we will get you back on another day because
I've lost you, Steve.
Yeah, we've lost you as well.
Yeah, I got the gist of the question, which is somebody has been juicing and did well, but now wants to lose weight.
Yeah, I think this lady lost the weight but has put it back on. And my comment there was, it is a constant challenge for some people like myself.
It's not coming through.
Okay, we'll leave Jenny there. We'll get you back another day. We'll check the technology for another day because you are absolutely brilliant to have on the show. Your knowledge is absolutely incredible. I'm going to answer a couple of questions, Jack, and then we will find our next guest on the line. And I promise you, we will get Jenny Phillips back for a whole day because she's absolutely brilliant. So some more questions that were for Jenny. Jenny, do you believe in diet plus conventional cancer treatment or only diet, paleo medicine? Let's leave that for Jenny when we do get her back. Marvelous says, hi Steve, watching your show, I stopped eating bread for 1 week now and went and bought bell peppers, yogurt, big thanks, and berries. I was already eating. So somebody's changed their eating habits off the back of this program, which is great. And I said to my children, when we came up with this idea, I said, we'll do this every single day till the end of lockdown. I said, if there's 3 benefits, if we can raise money for the Trussell Trust and the food banks, that's brilliant. But I said, if we just get one person that changes their eating habits and helps them live healthier, happier for longer, then we have to judge that as a success. And the third thing I'm hoping that is, my children being exposed and having to listen to an hour every day of brilliant advice from our doctors, our nutritionists and our chefs will take on board some of that great advice, because while they look super healthy today, I firmly believe through all the research I've done, that my damage to my metabolism wasn't when it first started to show signs in my late 20s. I think I damaged my metabolism in my teens. And I think once you damage your metabolism, your body gets used to a certain type of food and therefore, craves that food more and more and more because that's what you've always given it. And therefore, to break that sort of addiction to sugar and carbs becomes harder and harder. And with a damaged metabolism, the amount of food you need to sustain your base metabolic rate is all over the shop. So even if you're young, cutting down those carbs can be a great thing to do. Do we have John Earls with us? We do. Good morning, John. How are you?
Morning. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, great. How's the last week or so since we last met you gone?
Yeah, good. It looks like you've caught the sun.
Out yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same for me. Nice and happy because it's been sun shining and been able to get out and enjoy the weather. So yeah, definitely smiling and feeling happy.
Well, we had so many doctors in the last week that said one of the best things to do to avoid the virus is to up your vitamin D levels, and the best way to up your vitamin D levels is to get out in the sun. And of course, that also helps with serotonin, which is our happiness neurotransmitter. So sun really does make you happy, really does make you healthy, as long as one caveat, you just don't get burnt.
Yeah, quite true. Yeah.
So I've got loads of questions because last time you were on, there were some questions we didn't get to answer because they came in after you went. How important is nutrition for good health? was a question that was directed at you last time.
Yeah. So nutrition, like anything else, is very important. I mean, I'd say probably nutrition is probably more important than a lot of things, because we use nutrition as the building blocks for our body in lots of ways. We get energy from building blocks that we get out of food. We repair using the nutrients we get from food. We enjoy food. So you were just talking a moment ago about being happy. Well, food can help you feel happy as well. It's nice to have a good meal. So there's so many benefits to be gotten from eating a good diet. But I think the key is balance with the diet. Too many people maybe are not aware of what a balanced diet is. And I think, going back to some points I made last time, the benefits of things like yoga and mindfulness is that yoga and mindfulness brings you into a more balanced state within your mind and your body. So you've got a better connection. You're better able to feel when food is good for you. Like you eat something, you feel sluggish, you feel tired. That's your body saying, you know what, actually, I don't think we're processing this in the right way. Foods that are hard to break down are going to make your body feel tired, because you've got to use more energy to break those foods down. It's quite simple in that sense. So if we learn to listen to our body more, we're more balanced in our mind, more meditation, more yoga, eating a better diet, we should generally feel happier, better able to work. We were talking about work last time, but also feel more positive and more alert. We have a lot more energy. Certainly, I feel like I'm bouncing today. After having the sunshine and having a great weekend.
Looks brilliant advice. What you're saying, because I remember when I was so overweight, I just felt so tired all the time, so lethargic. I still make myself go and do a run every day, but I just felt rubbish doing it. And back then, I could eat almost anything and not have any idea how it made me feel, whether it was making me feel better or worse. I had no idea. I was so far off the scale in being healthy. And yet, as the weight comes down, you're absolutely right. You can start to listen to your body, because you're in a good place. Eat something a little bit that's not right for you, and straight away you know about it.
Oh yeah, massively, yeah.
Now, a question that came the other day, which I thought was interesting. What does caffeine do to the body? If someone is anxious, could caffeine affect this?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that was something very important to me, because I work a lot in mental health. My specialism is mindfulness. So doing a PhD in this area, mindfulness applied to stress, anxiety, in the workplace mainly. But caffeine is one of those things that, we accept that caffeine is like being a staple part of our day, don't we? Everyone's drinking coffee and tea, and it's part of our culture. But caffeine is, don't get me wrong, I like caffeine and it's got its benefits and things. But caffeine is a real hidden issue when it comes to anxiety. I'm not an expert in how caffeine affects the body, but what I do know is that caffeine affects adrenaline. And when caffeine affects adrenaline, it spikes those glands that produce adrenaline. You get more anxious. So anxiety can be felt more in the body. It can change anxiety levels. So if somebody's already anxious, they're already stressed, having coffee is not going to help that. It's going to heighten it. Yeah, it might make you focus a little bit more at work. You may need that caffeine, or at least when I say need, you might think you might need the caffeine to stay alert, and that's very useful in terms of a psychological approach. If you think that the caffeine is going to help you, then it probably will help you. But in terms of anxiety, when you want to rest, stimulating the adrenaline in that way is going to prolong the effects of anxiety. So one of the first things that I would always suggest to people, if they've got anxiety, you're stressed, you're feeling like you're a little bit out of control, is to first of all reduce your caffeine. Yeah. So caffeine is, I was just going to say with caffeine, again, I'm not an expert in this area, but somebody mentioned this to me online, because I asked about just for some advice from people, what would you say about caffeine? Is it good, bad? And somebody made a very good point that caffeine also affects sleep patterns. So if you're having caffeine too late in the day, can affect you going to sleep. It also affects the level of sleep, so how deep you go into sleep. So we'll go back to the first question in terms of nutrition and diet being very good for helping the body to repair. If you're not sleeping very well, then the body hasn't got that chance to repair. So you're not going to feel as good. Your body is not going to look as good. Or if you've got an injury or you're feeling not very good, like with your mood, then the body hasn't got a chance to make you better. So I think it has lots of effects.
Yeah, coffee is definitely a double-edged sword, and everybody reacts differently to caffeine. So, for example, I can have a coffee at 10 o'clock at night, doesn't affect my sleep. Some people, like my wife, she'll have a coffee up to midday, but then wouldn't touch it after midday. Others, coffee doesn't agree with at all. I'm just trying to look for a book. Where is it? Because there is a really interesting, here we go, The Longevity Solution. So this is written by Jason Fung and Dr. James Dinicanalatinio, who are both good friends of mine. And they it's called The Longevity Solution. And they break it down dead simple. Tip 5, so plants versus animal proteins, topic by topic, the optimal amount of protein, benefits of fasting, a whole chapter on tea, one on red wine as well, red wine and coffee. And the interesting thing is tracking longevity around the world. There's some evidence that supports the fact that actually coffee drinkers can be more healthy. In other words, what I'm trying to say is simply this: it's not black and white. Could be black and white coffee. There's a good one. How would you like it? Sorry, children, that was terrible, my dad. Terrible pun. It's not black and white, is it? There is some evidence to support that maybe it helps with longevity, but I think you're absolutely right that if you are anxious, then coffee's probably not good for you or not the best thing to be drinking, because it will drive up your anxiety probably. Right, next question for you from the other day was, what sort of foods would you consider detrimental to one's mental and physical health?
Well, I don't think any foods in particular are. I think if everything's good in moderation, in balance. But I would just say, and going back to our last program that I was on, sugar. I think sugar is one of those things, in all its various forms that it's nice. Everyone likes sugar, but sugar is one of those things that your body, it affects the body quickly. You're getting spikes in different hormone levels in the body very quickly, and there's very quick spikes, there's very quick drops. So in terms of your mood and your mental health, and you can see I've got a little boy, he's 5. When he has sugar, his mood goes really high, he goes very hyper, and then he has a crash. When he eats sugar, I notice his body gets more bloated. He looks bloated. I know from when I eat sugar or I eat simple carbohydrates, I tend to put on weight very quickly. I'm better on a low carbohydrate diet, and higher fats, low carbohydrates. I had acid reflux a few years ago. I went to an expert that couldn't work it out what was going on. I wasn't eating a lot of meat, I wasn't eating a lot of sweets, I wasn't eating all these sorts of things. But it was a surgeon I went to, and he said, "Look, tell me what you're having in your diet." And I was like, "Well, this, that, and the other." And he said, "Oh, bread. Oh, potatoes. Oh, I think it was onions as well." And he was just picking. He said, "Well, just cut those things out and increase your meat intake." And I was like, "Really? What type of meat?" He said, "Well, try lean meat, like chicken." And within a week, my acid reflux, and I've been suffering for about 3 years with it, had pretty much gone. Yeah, so I think that obviously individuals are individuals, and we can't just say one. Like you said, it's not black or white. For me, that works, but very much for me, sugar and carbohydrates, or simple carbohydrates, are ones to be aware of, that they can cause issues.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. In my book, I wrote that, for example, if you've got IBS, and so many people struggle with IBS, the best thing you can do if you've got it, I list them all in the book. There's like 12 food types that you should just avoid for a week and see if it goes away, because it might go away, because they're quite often IBS is food related. And then all of a sudden you go, "Oh, my IBS has disappeared." Then you start adding one back in, and the second your IBS comes back, you go, bingo, You know,
There
it's
you go.
onions or it's eggs or it's milk or it's bread, and because you know IBS for everybody's different, and it's the same with acid reflux, same with gout. You know, different people. I've friends of mine that have got gout. I've recommended different solutions. My son-in-law Jake used to have gout literally twice a month, and everybody's telling him you're drinking too much wine, and he went, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to give up the wine." I went, okay. So I read about changing the pH in his water. So I bought him a water filter, but a really strong one that completely changed the pH, took the acidity out, made it much more alkaline, and touch wood, 6 months later, not had gout once.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, good advice.
There's normally, for many of these different things, there's a food or liquid, or there's something that can be causing it. Because we're not meant to have gout, we're not meant to have acid reflux, you know, we're not meant to have, you know, all these diseases. Question that came in for you: what other health and wellness techniques would you suggest?
Yeah, so I'm doing a webinar in 2 weeks. Again, this is focused for anyone, you know, general public and companies. Myself and a colleague are doing this webinar about what's good for the mind, lifestyle, and nutrition throughout lockdown. You know, how can you get the most out of this situation? A little bit like you know, you're setting a few things to do so that when you come out of a lockdown, you're in a better position than when you started lockdown. So we're doing something similar, aimed at people who are at work, in businesses, but general public could jump on as well. And one of the things in that webinar that we talk about is very much this, and I think it fits this last question, is that I'm a big advocate of getting up in the morning and setting your intentions. So if you were to get up in the morning, you know, maybe do just a few minutes, sit by yourself, close your eyes, or keep your eyes open if you want to, but just to have a few moments by yourself, slow yourself down, take a few deep breaths, you know, maybe go outside, have a look at the garden. Just what I'm trying to say is get yourself into a state where you're a little bit calmer, you're a little bit more focused. And then just think, you know, what do you want to achieve today? What do you want to get out of the day? You could do this as like a mindfulness exercise. You could do this as a setting your intentions, a little meditation. What am I going to achieve today? Have that in the forefront of your mind. Or you could just do it, as I said, you're just standing there, looking at the garden, eyes open, just thinking, what am I going to achieve today? The benefits of this is that, like with nutrition, you have to make an active step about, right, I am going to have, you know, protein for breakfast because I know this is going to be good for me. In the same way, we need to address our mental health like this, and if we want to get the most out of the day, to be the happiest that we can do, we need to also set up our mind for that. So they always say one of the best times of the day to meditation or mindfulness is in the morning when you first wake up, or sometime in the morning before you start off. And the reason is it sets your brain pattern for the day. You've also got a clear focus then. What am I gonna do today? What do I want to achieve? Then when you get to the end of the day, if you've achieved those goals, I mean, you're going to feel so positive. So it has that positivity effect as well. So that would be 100% the tip that I would suggest for people.
John, that's great advice. Would you, John, also add into there, while you're doing your mindfulness, maybe think about what can you be grateful for, a bit of gratitude in others. You know, it could be as simple as, wow, I woke up and I'm breathing, or, oh, I can hear the birds outside singing, or it's rained, so the plants are going to have a good night. I always believe that, I say to my kids, you know, because especially when life's tough, just try and focus on something that you can be grateful for.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I mean, there's a beautiful meditation. If anybody's interested in looking it up, they call it compassion meditation. You can just Google compassion mindfulness or compassion meditation. Yeah, and it's a little bit like you were talking about, and you look at people in your life that you love, and you send them love, you send them happiness, you send them kindness, and it just brings up that feeling of, you know what, I've got all these people in my life that I absolutely adore, I absolutely love. If you don't have people, it could be a pet or or a place, but everyone's got something in them that they love, and like you said, bringing those feelings up means you feel gratitude, and gratitude is such a wonderful thing because it's so positive, gets you into a good frame of mind, 100%. But compassion meditation would definitely be my recommendation.
John, absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you for spending time with us. We will try and find out about your webinar, and we'll try and promote that for you. As always, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for some great tips.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
Everybody, that was the brilliant John Earls. We'll sure we'll get him back later down the line in lockdown, and we'll also let you know about his webinar. That sounds really interesting, doesn't it? Now, one last thing before we go. Let's remind ourselves, in fact, two last things. I'd like to go back to the sugar chart, if we can, in a moment. But also, let's remember, one of the purposes is we need to raise funds for Just Giving. And if you could just put £1 on, £5 on, £10 on, especially if you're a taxpayer, the government will give an extra 20-something% through gift aid. We'll then double it. So think about it this way. If you were to put £8 on and you're a taxpayer, that becomes £20. If you could put, because I'll double it, and the taxman will give us back the tax we paid in the past. If you could stretch to, say, £22, that's then £50. That's going to help put a lot of meals on a lot of tables this evening. So I really would plead with you to help donate via the text number or Just Giving. That would be fantastic. Now, we're going to show you a little film about the Trussell Trust, and then I'm going to come back and show you a bit more about that sugar chart and where sugar is hidden, because I want to do that because there's a great question in from Alba 5 saying, what are you classifying as simple carbohydrates? I'll talk about that straight after this.
Food Bank isn't only about food. Food Bank is also about meeting new friends, getting to know people. I was a care support worker in the Northern Trust. I have 3 children, ages from 23, 16 and 6. Last April was around Easter time. I unfortunately took 2 TIA strokes. I did spend a time in hospital to come out to discover that I couldn't go back to my work. I also didn't get any sick pay through my work because I was a bank staff nurse or bank nurse. There was food in the cupboard. We had some food in the freezer, but I knew it was starting to get low and low and low. Things were just starting to get on top of me because I just wasn't doing what I should have been doing as a mother, and felt kind of down on it. I was getting benefits as well, but I was even struggling in those. I decided it was either go and ask somebody for a lend of money and have that debt and struggle, or go to the food bank. So I decided I would opt for the food bank. Driving in, I sat in the car park for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, getting the courage to go in, and the welcome that I got through the doors was just phenomenal. They offered me tea, coffee. They didn't go full in on me, what's wrong or what have you. It was totally so nice, so family based. The girls helped me with what food I needed for the kids, which was that was my importance, was the children. Coming here was just a great relief. Nobody judges anybody. I found that Jenny was fit to give me some information on any benefits that maybe I was entitled to that I wasn't getting. Just showing me the road that maybe I could go down and get more help, which was very good. Left with my bags and my food and just felt very overwhelmed. I think I just cried. Just a good feeling. Yeah, I was so glad I come here. Because of me not working anymore, I decided I'm going to join. So I now am a volunteer for the food bank. I still struggle a little, but things are definitely well balanced out now. So no, I'm not needing the food bank anymore, but I'm glad it was there when I needed the help.
Yes, anything you can do to help support the Trussell Trust, they are amazing. Food banks across the UK in desperate times at the moment need more donations as in cash, and more of us putting in food into those collection boxes every time we go around the supermarket. Let me finish with answer one question. I apologise for I haven't got to everybody today. We will try and answer them tomorrow. Tell you what, I'd love if you can. And that is, if you put your questions on the repeat of the show later on, or get your friends to put questions on, you just go and put it below. So there's the live questioning we're doing now. But if you can transfer those and put them at the bottom in the comments, I'll read all the comments this evening and I'll make sure I answer all the comments the next day. Also, if you can, give it the thumbs up right now. Just hit the thumbs button. That would be great. Also, subscribe to the channel. That will help us immensely in getting the word out to everybody else. But to answer the question about what are we classing as simple carbohydrates. So here's 2 minutes on carbs. Carbs are either simple or complex. And let's simplify that. It basically, those analogies are, or those categories are, how quickly it converts into sugar inside the body. Now, another day we'll talk about glycemic index, like glycemic load, and so on. But park that for 1 second. So we've got simple, we've got complex, we've got processed and unprocessed. First thing you have to say is all carbs break down into sugar in the body. However, what are the bad carbs? Well, the carbs that are really bad are those that are highly processed and those that have little nutritional value. So, for example, I personally believe in green vegetables because green vegetables have so many goodness in them, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, that I would never encourage my children not to eat them. Although I am personally going to try the carnivore diet next month for a whole month, whole meat and nothing else, to see what happens, because there's so much good research now around the carnivore diet. But on a normal day, greens, you need the carbs in greens. Now, there's one that sits in between the two, and that's the potato, because you could say, well, the potato is unprocessed, it's natural. But you have to remember what a potato is. A potato is starch. And what is starch? Well, we talk about glycogen in our body as a temporary store of sugar. Well, glycogen in a human being is the same as starch in a potato. So whenever you hear the word starch, anything that's starchy, that is the plant's way of storing sugar. Simple as. No nutrients. It's the plant's energy source, store of sugar. So anything that's starchy is sugar. So the potato is nothing more than sugar. So if you take a large baked potato, which I lived off for years thinking that that was my healthy choice because I was obese but always trying to lose weight. But look at that. A large potato turns into, in the bloodstream, the equivalent glucose spike as having 15 teaspoons of sugar. That's 60 grams of sugar. Then look at the Subway. Just the bread alone is 150 grams on a 12-inch. We know, we tested it, we weighed it. And then we asked Dr. David Unwin, well, what does that turn into in sugar? Again, 15 teaspoons of sugar. So that sugar spike in your bloodstream means more insulin. And more insulin can lead to insulin resistance, but it can also lead to cancer. It can also lead to diabetes. It can also lead to obesity and so much more. So the key thing here is, can you find alternatives? Can you switch out your rice for cauliflower rice? Can you switch out your pasta for zucchini or something else? You know, what else can you replace it with? Can you replace the bread that you put your cheese on with a healthy biscuit that's made of low or no carbs? It's all really, really doable. Just need to get some really good cookbooks. Well done, Jack. That was brilliant. You just need to get some really good cookbooks that have had Jenny Phillips as their brilliant nutritionist. It's time for us to sign off. Do me a big, big favor if you can. Give this video a thumbs up. If you can, please subscribe to this channel. Please share it with your friends. Let's see if we can get our country really, really healthy during the lockdown period. Join me at 10 o'clock every morning live on YouTube. Simply go to Primal Living's channel and you'll see our new Food Bank show. Now, the Food Bank show is basically what it says on the tin. We're trying to raise money for food banks across the UK that more than ever need our support. At the same time, in every show, I'll be joined by doctors and nutritionists that are going to help us reshape the food that we eat. Because maybe there's a bit of a silver lining for our health right now. All of the restaurants are shut. The McDonald's, the Subway, the Greggs, they're all closed. So we've got to change our eating habits anyway. But with the advice of some of the world's leading doctors, some of the world's leading nutritionists, I'm going to help you reshape the food that you're consuming and hopefully boost your immune system to get through this very difficult time.